Well, hello.
Well, yeah, hello there, General Kenobi. Welcome back to 2MoreTakes, everyone. I am one of your hosts, Jack.
And I am your other host, Josephus.
Giuseppe Moretti Baldotelli.
Giuseppe Mourinho.
Giuseppe Mourinho. Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm not sure how the audio quality is going to come out over in the edit, but I don't know if the audience will be able to tell. But I recently, this is my new audio setup.
Jack be sounding fresh.
Yes, much better than I used to, hopefully. But we're not here to talk about me today, as much as I'd love to do that. We are actually here today to talk about some other needs,
Movies and stuff.
namely one. Do you want to just tell them what we're talking about?
2 days ago, Jack and I watched together the new release of Justice League.
The Snyder Cut.
The Zack Snyder Cut, yes.
Yes.
So, 4 hours of questionable, but alright content, you know? It wasn't too bad.
There's a lot to break down. And this will probably be an aggregation of stuff that we talk about today. But there's a lot to talk about, and we cannot make like an hour to 4 hour long sort of analysis of this or review or whatever you call this. I mean, it's a podcast. But here's another thing. This is a weird occurrence for us because I have said to Joe in private before that I do not want to do main releases with 2MoreTakes. We want to do something else with that, like some other sort of type of show. But currently, this is our current podcast, our current show. So it makes sense to just get it out here and see what you guys sort of think about our thoughts on it. I, for one, have a lot to say on the topic of the Snyder Cut. Not all of it to do with the movie.
Yeah, well.
And that's Joe's thoughts. And that'll be. We'll see you next week.
No. I mean, I don't know how to compare it to a lot of things, but it obviously will be. The main thing is it's DC's sort of attempt to copy Marvel a little bit, isn't it?
Well, it's a retcon, really. It's literally a retcon. But I think as well, before we get into it, we should also preface that you're not that into superhero stuff.
I'm not that big. I've seen most of the Marvel films, not all of them, but I'm not a superhero guy, really.
Yeah. Whereas I am. I'm a very much a fanboy fan guy, but I know how to detach that from my persona and my personality when it comes to like criticism. Say for instance, like as you know about me, Joe, I love Star Wars. I love the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. I am an avid Star Wars fan. Nowadays, I am no longer a Star Wars fan. Because the fandom is toxic and terrible. I mean, that's a generalization because there are some really great people in the Star Wars fandom. But as a fan, I think that the term fanboy has really become something negative. I go over that in my dissertation. I'm not here to turn this into some sort of theoretical debate about the meaning of criticism and that. I just thought that I should bring up that obviously I very much love like comic books. I love I love superhero type stuff. And I stuff like that. So stuff within the semantic field.
Yeah.
I have a very vested interest in it, and I know a fair bit. I'm not going to say I'm like the most knowledgeable, but when it comes to like superhero lore, I do know quite a bit. I mostly know stuff about like the DC sort of Justice League type characters, so this is actually quite convenient for this one. Strangely enough, I have always preferred DC sort of characters and their like shows. I always preferred that over the Marvel stuff, and then when Iron Man came out and the Marvel Cinematic Universe came to be, I quickly drifted over to that because it was of a certain quality.
I mean, even for me, I don't know, before all the, cinematic universes and stuff, I didn't know much about many of the superheroes. I hadn't seen that many films. I didn't read any of the comics when I was little or anything, so for me, the films are all fresh. Sort of my first impression of all the superhero universes is mostly through the films, with a couple of exceptions, but yeah.
Well, I sure as hell hope that your first impression of Batman was from like Christopher Nolan and not this sack.
To be fair, no, my first impression of Batman's one of the exceptions where he's in so many films and TV shows that I have seen Batman I was very familiar with. But then, I definitely grew up with the Nolan Batman mostly.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other superheroes, especially in Justice League, that I've never heard of. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, no,
with.
you hadn't heard of Cyborg before. Was I think the main one, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, we'll go through them as I'm sure we bring them up, but
I guess
also in the film itself, they all have they try and introduce the characters, even the ones that have been in previous films. They introduce them in their own scenes, and some of them work, some of them don't work, as I'm sure we'll get to.
Well, I guess to start off, we should talk about the elephant in the room. Obviously, the producer / Joss Whedon cut of Justice League, the theatrical cut, was the one that the world got first, and it's the one that's 2 hours long. It's an hour and 50 minutes, and it's one of those things where watching this cut as well, you have an immediate appreciation for what Zack Snyder was trying to do, even if it doesn't work exactly in the Snyder Cut sometimes.
No, I mean, I think I quite like a long movie, as long as it's, quality content.
Yeah, and the pacing and the as you said, the content is good.
Some of what Zack Snyder's cut does, it does add quite a lot to certain characters, and obviously I can't compare it exactly to the other cut because I didn't see the other cut myself.
Here's the thing. In an attempt to watch this film and to talk about it on the podcast, I attempted to go and find the Justice League Joss Whedon cut beforehand, but I was unsuccessful. It was on Netflix for like 2 years. 2 years it was on Netflix, and I don't know. I guess just as soon as this came out, like somebody pulled the plug on it. But here's the thing: I have not seen the Whedon cut in its entirety. However, I am fully aware of the differences in many regards because I have seen enough reviews and enough of this film over the history of its last 3 years of existing that not only did I know everything about the story, everything about what was wrong with the characters, I also knew I never wanted to fucking see that movie in my life.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that now I never have to. But it is a bit of a shame because I really wanted to be a bit more accurate about what we were going to talk about here. But I do think, to begin with, I guess I will list off the key differences because I know that obviously you can't. And then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the film, the actual Snyder Cut, which we can both sort of extensively talk about. The theatrical release, the original cut of Justice League, is a jumbled mess, mainly because all those all the sort of the long and lengthy but elaborative exposition scenes that we get in this film in the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
They are all absent, not even mentioned. The way that Batman discovers that there are going to be the magic cubes, the mother boxes, the way he discovers that. One of the parademons, the bug things that are the minions of Steppenwolf, he catches one with a net and it explodes against the wall and it leaves an impression, a plasma impression of 3 cubes. It's been talked to death by everyone. It's the stupidest way you could introduce a MacGuffin. Why the hell that demon did that when it exploded? Never explained, but it's okay, if you're trying to shorten up the cut to be more theatrically releasable, that's not how you do it. You go back and you shoot something that actually has exposition in it. You just don't have to go full balls to the wall like Zack Snyder did with the giant battle scenes. But yeah, so there's that. The main issue that people took with this with the theatrical cut was the absence of any meaningful backstory to Cyborg and to the Flash. In the theatrical cut, Cyborg is just around, and Wonder Woman talks to him for one scene. He's just in the apartment for a single scene, and then he's involved in the plot. He doesn't actually have much to do with anything in the plot, except he charges the mother boxes occasionally or something. He uses his Cyborg stuff to do that. I don't think he does any of the sort of searching the web for intel stuff. He doesn't. It doesn't do anything like that. And then you have an even worse sort of in the case of the Flash. I would argue, I think everyone would argue that Cyborg was done the worst because at least the Flash had some. He didn't have stuff to do, but he did have lines to say, I guess. But in my opinion, Flash got done dirty the most because, as you can attest to, Joe, the Flash scene, the intro Flash scene in this cut of the film it's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
like
pretty cool. Yeah.
It's a good introduction for the character because it establishes his powers. It establishes what kind of person he is. That being said, he should not have stroked that girl's hair. That was just a bit weird, creepy. But it's kind of, I think this might be like some sort of weird double standard, something completely made up for when he rescues a hot dog. That's it's so absurd to see in a Zack Snyder film. It's hilarious. But we miss out on that scene, which introduces him as a character and his powers in a much better way than it does in the theatrical cut. In the theatrical cut, it's just Batman meeting him at his hideout and throwing the Batarang at him, and then him dodging it. And then him being like, "Oh, you're Batman." And then he's like adding jokes, and there's the infamous brunch joke, which just goes on for way too long, and it's terrible. All the jokes that Ezra Miller has given in the Whedon cut and the producer's cut is just insufferable. But yeah, in this film, a lot of that is made up for, but there are some things that sort of that were in both cuts. Like, for instance, the infamous snack hole line from The Flash. I'm a black hole of snacks. I'm a snack hole. It's just terrible. So both cuts, it's awful. Also, Wonder Woman isn't like a hypocrite in this cut as well.
Okay.
In this cut, in the original cut, Wonder Woman was given like some sort of story arc of like, you haven't been saving people for like 100 years or whatever, and in the beginning of the film we see her saving people, so it made no sense. And in this cut they've removed that, so it doesn't matter. But there are other things that are interesting about it. But
yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted about pretty much every character in this film anyway. Even from, obviously they may have improved some of them from the original cut, right?
Yeah.
But even in this improved cut, some of it's not bad. But then there are bits, as you said, there's still some weird decisions with, like, sometimes Flash is, seems kind of cool, but then he comes across as a little bit annoying sometimes. He says some really dumb stuff, like that particular joke, and it's like...
Well, he's a passive protagonist until the end, which is, I mean, it kind of works with the climax, because it's like he hasn't done really anything of any substance besides running really fast to resurrect Superman or something. But he hasn't, like, he's not saved anyone really besides at the beginning of the film, and it wasn't like time travel, it's just him being really fast. But obviously he saves the day at the end of the film. But up until that point, there's just like... I mentioned it was like twice, I think, the occasion where, like, he's the fastest man alive. He should be the first person to take any action.
Yeah.
And he's always the last one to take any kind of action in a scene.
It's like it's kind of because they make him out to be one of the lesser important characters out of all of them, and yet... he's probably one of the more powerful ones. Yeah,
and he has the best motivation, I think, in the film, and that like he's just like a dude trying to look out for his dad who was wrongly convicted of a crime, and his dad's Dr. Manhattan. Like, it's. I said this to you when the scene ended. I said, "Oh my God, Joe, I think I actually care about this character and someone in this film."
Because the whole relationship between Flash and his father, well, actually, it's all right. I feel for them. I feel for his dad. He's like, I want my son to be doing something out there, and Flash is like, I could join the Justice League. I can be somebody.
Yeah.
But then also, I couldn't help but notice that sometimes it really feels similar to. It's like the Spider-Man and Tony Stark relationship.
I thought that.
Almost.
He's
Not
very
quite,
Spider-Man adjacent.
But it's this whole like, hey, you're Batman. I'm joining you. Oh, you do the cool thing that you do.
And the relationship between him and Batman sort of starts and ends in that scene.
Yeah. No, there's
because
not
afterwards
too much
he's sort of given his own, like, he's not like he has as much interactions and sort of stuff to do with like Aquaman and like Cyborg.
Yeah.
I do think they could do a little bit more with him in scenes. I do think that like him and Aquaman suffer from like not having as much to do with the other characters in this film. I do think that they improve upon the relationship between Batman and Wonder Woman in this film, and Cyborg is genuinely probably one of the most sort of compelling characters as a backstory. He actually has a backstory now, so
I liked Cyborg.
Not Iron Man.
No, they gave him more sort of impact in the film by adding a bunch more. There's the whole relationship between him and his father, and him and his sort of struggle with, I don't know. He's obviously
there's a lot
cyborg,
of relationships with your parents type thing going on. Because Aquaman, his mum was like queen or whatever of Atlantis. Cyborg's dad turned him into a cyborg. Barry Allen's dad is trapped in like jail. Superman's dad is what makes him think at the end, like, oh, you should go and be a hero. Even though really, from the way that the film's edited and what was included, it really should just be Lois Lane going like, you should go and help everyone. It's not right that you're. That's not who you are. You're a hero. That should be what should happen, because that's. I mean, later on we'll talk about Lois Lane, but
we'll get to that bit, because there's a lot of unnecessary stuff.
Fluff,
I think,
and you know exactly the part I'm talking about. So yeah.
But I was gonna say the Cyborg I kind of feel for as well. Not as much. I think the Flash with his imprisoned dad was the one that was best done. Yeah. But Cyborg's sort of family issues are done all right.
I would say that I don't think they're like negatively done. No. But I do think when it comes to Cyborg, I think that there's more to his relationship with his dad. I do think that obviously he does fall into a bit of a trap in that. I think you said this at some point. Like, you did. You said that, like, am I supposed to be able to tell a difference between the voice of Cyborg and Batman? Yeah,
because they both have, when they're in suit, when Batman's in the suit, they both have altered voices. They both sound a little bit robotic and deep. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't quite tell who's speaking anymore.
Well, for Cyborg, he's kind of just angry, like in angry teenager mode the entire film up until this point. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, he does sort of, he once his dad dies, especially, he becomes a more sort of compassionate sounding character. I will say, there is the big trap in this film that Zack Snyder has once again fallen into, and that is that besides at the start of the film, the heroes don't save anyone in this film. The only two heroes that in fact save anyone are the Flash and Wonder Woman, and I suppose you could count Cyborg for when he rescues his dad, but ultimately that's kind of pointless given that his dad dies at the end, or partway through the film.
Also, Aquaman saves one guy, I believe.
I don't care about fucking Aquaman.
It's a bit of an odd one, but I don't think they did for parts of the movie. It wasn't too bad, but my problem with him was that Aquaman just seems like, I mean, one of the opening scenes is Batman going to find him, and he's like, "I'll pay you to join us," and he's like, "Nah." I'm like, okay, Aquaman.
Yeah, he's kind of just a dick, really, which is actually, I will say that, like, it makes a change of pace, really, because obviously the other characters aren't really dickish, but, I mean, the problem is that, like, he cares about, like, the oceans and stuff like that, and he says, do you remember when he drags in that fisherman from a storm, and he says he didn't respect the storm, and then he, like, takes a bottle of whiskey.
In the ocean
he litters in the ocean with a whiskey bottle, like glass, that fish are going to, like, eat, and it's like, you're a fucking hypocrite. Like, what do you... Like, being an alcoholic, sure, that's a compelling sort of thing for a character like that. But then there's also the fact that, like, all of the stuff to do with Atlantis, I just don't care about. Wonder Woman, at least, like, it's like, okay, they understood that no one cares about the Amazon island. And then, in this, I will say that we get a fairly lengthy and exciting action sequence, even if it is a bit... It's a bit excessive, really.
Yeah,
but it's way more interesting than the Atlantis one, where Steppenwolf can also swim really well, and he's not using his talents at all.
I mean, they're trying to make Steppenwolf seem powerful, so he's still able to fight them in the water.
Yeah, but he kind of comes across as like a Mary Sue. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he can do anything that the plot demands him to do, and then as soon as Superman turns up, he's just, like, useless. I mean, that is why, like, the ending is actually quite interesting for from a superhero trope perspective, because it's very a super laser going into the sky, but
But you did remind me that I was talking about the other films. When we started watching this, I was like, oh yeah, I have seen Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman.
Oh yes.
But I can't remember a damn thing that happened in either of those two films.
I mean, so Batman vs Superman, I would have to rewatch it, but I'm fairly certain that in the beginning of this film, Superman, when he's dying, because it begins with Superman dying, He is like screaming, and the screams are going out across the world. And we mistakenly thought for a second that everything we were seeing in this montage was like the current time, but it's actually a passage of time. But that's also not true, because immediately concurrently to that, Lex Luthor is getting a vision of Steppenwolf. Also, why is Lex Luthor getting a vision of Steppenwolf in this cut? That doesn't make any sense. Like, obviously he's messing around with the Kryptonian ship, but it's still not explained. Like, can the ship predict the future? Like Steppenwolf, if it was like Darkseid or someone, I could understand that, because it's part of like the past. Like, Darkseid tried doing it on the planet or whatever. But Steppenwolf, he was not involved in that situation at all. And also Lex Luthor, it's a very tacked-on scene where it's like, that felt like it should have been in Batman vs. Superman before this film. And it would have been like, oh, okay, this was set up a bit more. But I mean, the problem is that with all these films, it's just no one's planning them out. I mean, so much so that this film is a thing, because the studio pushed out a rushed mess with Joss Whedon, coming in to do some reshoots, and they fooled around with the man's project while his family and him and his wife were dealing with a family tragedy, and that is the most like diabolically corporate evil thing. I'm not a massive fan of Zack Snyder's films. I like his early work. I like Dawn of the Dead, but he's by no means made like tons of great films. He's made a few, but he's not made tons. I feel so bad for the guy. His daughter dies, and then like his like passion is his labor of love is then completely re-edited. But we can talk about more about that stuff later on with the studio and that. But yeah, anything I need to make this sort of statement. Anything negative that I or Joe say about this film, anything that's sort of critically negative, or anything that sort of like could be meant in jest, is meant in jest, and it was all in good faith. This is like, we're not trying to dunk on Zack Snyder as a whole. I may not like Batman vs Superman. I may not like Man of Steel, but I don't not like the guy. I don't know him. That being said, I do think that separating the art from the artist, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman are some of the worst films I've ever seen. Not as bad as Suicide Squad, which is, of course, the magnum opus of Dog Sick. But yeah, with this film, it's a surprising improvement. But there are things like that. There's just like... The beginning of the film is so confusing, because there's like the screams echo around the world, and we see all of the different places, like the Amazons and the Atlanteans, and I don't know, wherever we see Cyborg in his apartment with one of the cubes. Well, we don't see him with the cube yet, but the whole point is we're seeing him because he has a cube, or a mother box, sorry. And then eventually Mark Kent has like sold her house, and we're like... But isn't Superman just dying now? Like, it's not made clear. And then Batman, Batman, he's like a few years older, and he's in the Arctic now. And suddenly it hits you. You go, oh, okay, it's been a little bit of time. It's been a few years, perhaps.
It's a little bit confusing because you go from. I'm pretty sure like Batman's with Superman
he is
when he dies, isn't he? And then they cut to all the things, and then it's like mountains, and Batman's just hiking through the mountains trying to find Aquaman or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, he's got a beard and everything, so it's he's been out and about for a while.
Batman is the weakest character in this film, and in Batman vs Superman. Yeah, in Batman vs Superman, he at least has cool things to do. Like, he has the warehouse scene, which everyone loves. But in this film, he's just reduced to, oh, I'm gun guy. I shoot guns. Yeah,
Batman is literally just, I'm putting together a team, and then at the end he's like, he has a couple of cool gadgets, which I'm glad.
Some of it,
some of it's like Batman doing Batman things, but then there's a lot of just him like, I'll pick up this alien gun, and just start shooting stuff.
I have like Gatling guns and missiles on my Batmobile that I'm just going to...
Yeah.
And I think we said this at the time, like you said this, it's a little bit more acceptable because these are aliens, and of course, as human beings, we're xenophobic.
I'm fine with him shooting aliens, but it's like, that's really all he does.
Yeah. But to get back into this stuff, so Batman, he has next to no motivation. Here's the thing, okay, what's his motivation in this film? His motivation is to put together a team, and then it's to resurrect Superman. That comes afterwards, when he realizes that they can't beat them with the team, But they were trying to like save hostages at like the same time. Like, I don't know. He jumps on it pretty hard as soon as there's any sort of like as soon as they get like a mother box. He's like, oh, we could resurrect Superman. And then everyone else goes, oh, I don't know, that might not be a good idea. And he's like, we need to resurrect Superman. And he's like, you know what it comes across as? It comes across as, like, Batman is in love with Superman in this film. Because he's treating it after the fact like they are best friends. And when Superman resurrects, they kind of act like that a little bit. But I mean, obviously, there's a bit of like not to begin with. When Superman gets resurrected to begin with, he like is going to kill and murder Batman, which is hilarious. And also makes no sense because the last things he remembers is him, Wonder Woman, and Batman working together. Now, being scared of Cyborg and I guess Aquaman, Fish Boy, makes sense. He doesn't know who the Flash is, but it's still a bit like... I mean, it's a fun scene. It's a fun action scene, but...
No, but here's also my problem with this, that it was the whole thing where Superman, he takes a second... When he comes back, and he takes a second to, sort of figure out what's going on, I guess. And then Cyborg is like, my self-defense mechanism is going off. And it's like, what? You can't control your own defense mechanism? And
it's writing from the school of like the Predator 2018 writing, where it senses danger and it fires.
And that's literally the whole reason why Superman initiates a fight with them is because Cyborg's sort of thing goes off.
It's never brought up again because.
And like, why can't you control it? It's why?
Like in the finale, he doesn't automatically shoot Superman. Like it doesn't.
No.
There needs to be at least some
danger. Yeah, that really annoyed me.
That's not well communicated to the audience, and there's no payoff to that setup at all.
Yeah.
It's just an anomaly in the film, and there's a lot of just anomalies in the film. It feels like if you had asked Zack Snyder to take out like half an hour, like 40 minutes of this film, it would be a really streamlined, I think, really good film. Like for like DC and for like the superhero genre, it'd be pretty good. I think that as a Justice League film, it would be pretty good. That being said, it's time to get into the meat and potatoes as well of some of the nitpicky things that I have to say. Martian Manhunter.
Oh yeah, he shows up at some point.
Yeah, he shows up twice in the film, and he's one of the most important characters in the film.
And I still don't know who he is because
he's for many casual superhero fans, they're probably not going to know. He's in the same sort of camp as the Vision from the Marvel films. They're literally the same character, really. They both can shapeshift, they both can fly, and they both have very sort of stilted robotic personalities. But in this film, so there's an identical, well, not identical, but there's a very similar scene between Martha Kent and Lois, where they talk about the death of Superman, and Martha's like, "You should move on, dear." In this scene, and she's like, "You should move on. You shouldn't be."
And it's quite a nice scene, I guess.
Yeah, it's well shot as well. It's the actors are actually doing a surprisingly good job considering that they've been terrible in the rest of these films.
Yeah, because there's a couple of scenes with Lois and maybe Martha at a couple of points where there's little snippets of them that are dotted around throughout the film, which aren't entirely necessary. I think some of them are. But then there's some that there's maybe a couple.
Well, this one in particular pissed me off because it was okay. So what happens is they have this really touching scene in Lois's apartment before Superman has been resurrected. This is just like a few, maybe 10, 20 minutes beforehand, like when it ends. And as soon as Martha Kent leaves the apartment, she turns into Martian Manhunter, and then that's the end of the scene. First off, to anyone who doesn't know who Martian Manhunter is, i.e. Joe, you're not going to know who this character is, and for me, someone who does know who this character is, the equal effect is there in that both sides of this, the reaction you're going to get from this character being revealed, it's like, okay, you've completely ruined the emotional sort of effect of this scene.
You just invested me in these two characters, and Lois, she's so sad, and they both need to move on. They need to get, because Superman's gone.
Yeah,
I feel for them. It's a lovely, lovely scene. And then she walks out, and it's like, oh, it wasn't really Martha. It was whoever this guy is. That I don't know who this is.
I will say that Martian Manhunter in like the cartoon shows, he's one of the OG Justice League members. I think it varies from comic book to comic book, but he's one of my favorite characters in that. I love all the Justice League characters in the Justice League cartoon.
But in terms of just this film alone, though, it's the whole problem of they've just invested in us in a scene and then revealed that one of those characters was an imposter. So now we don't feel emotionally invested in the conversation that just happened. And having not seen this character throughout the entire film, most people who don't know who it is have no clue what's going on anymore. And it seems like a pointless
they've wasted
scene.
our time, is what it is. They've wasted our time with this scene that has no emotional resonance to anyone now. Obviously, for Lois, it's a turning point, but it's also the wrong turning point. Also, it makes no sense because why would he tell Lois to move on if it's why is he even talking to Lois?
I don't know, but
Martian Manhunter is a character who sort of remains very guarded and isolated, and he only gets involved when he has to. And he's the sort of character that would be perfect for a post-credit arriving at the end sort of thing. But yet the epilogue of this film is just like the biggest mess. And I will say that there are bits of it that I like, but the literal end scene where Martian Manhunter just comes to visit Bruce Wayne, and this was a scene that was not in the original film, I learned afterwards. And as well, you can tell, because Ben Affleck is a bit sort of, he looks different, he looks older, he looks a bit like chubbier. And there's the other instance of, that this is a later addition, because I noted this when we were watching it slightly, but his acting is so bad in this scene, because he's literally just like, oh, okay, your name is Martian Manhunter, that's good, I'm glad you're around, I'll see you on Monday then, I guess. Martian Manhunter looks weird in this film as well. I don't know why they didn't just do a vision thing where they just do a prosthetic makeup appliance type thing with a little bit of added CGI to sort of brush it up a bit, but yeah, he looks like he's an entirely CGI character, and I don't think that's a good idea.
I mean, there's a few of those around.
Yeah, but the one like Steppenwolf and Darkseid are a different thing, because Darkseid, you can't have an actor play that. Steppenwolf, he's being killed in this film, it doesn't matter.
But then you've got Cyborg, who has half a face.
He does look better in this version though, because of the colour grading of the film.
But there's a couple of points where it's like, it's a bit off.
I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about it, but I said to Joe every time he took off, and I went a bit far with my repeated gag, but I just kept thinking it. No, I'm not Iron Man.
No, in terms of the CGI itself, the shots they use, and how they film him flying around, he is essentially the same as Iron Man.
Yeah. So yeah, the Lois Lane stuff is completely falls flat eventually, because her arc is to try and move on, and then he comes back.
And then immediately, the first day she goes out and I'm going to start a fresh life. Forget about Superman. Oh, Superman's alive.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's what it should be is it's like, it should come across as like, oh, this is, I can't hold on to hope any longer. But, she stays there and she sort of closes her eyes and wishes and oh my God, he's back now. Oh, she held on to that love for as long as she could, and it was good enough. And yet, Superman in this film, he's fine. He doesn't do anything until the end.
I remember when we started watching it, you said, 10% of this film is in slow motion. And you're not wrong. They're not wrong. There's a lot of slow motion. But I did just think when, Superman comes back, there's some cool scenes with the slow-mo, as I think we both were saying about the one where I think you'd seen, I think I might have seen a clip of it before as well. It's where Flash is trying, obviously, fight him, and he's fighting everyone else, and Superman looks to his side at the same speed as Flash, obviously. So
he's a little bit slower. It's just that Flash is caught off guard. So that is something that's accurate. But it's something that's fairly accurate.
It's a pretty cool scene.
Yeah, it's a cool scene because it is it's showing the power of Superman. That being said, Superman is an overpowered character, but you can write him to be less sort of powerful. You can write him to have weaknesses. But regardless of that, that is something I'm pretty sure that is accurate to the source material in some instances. Obviously, they change things around, but Flash is faster than Superman, but Superman is pretty damn close with the speed.
Yeah.
I mean, Wonder Woman's pretty fast as well. She can go faster than bullets.
It's also a thing. So I was also going to mention the Wonder Woman has a couple of scenes where she's moving pretty fast. Almost hilariously fast, blocking some bullets.
Her first fight scene.
Yeah,
I think some people. I think for some people, it's not going to come across as humorously as it did for me. But I think it's well shot. But I think the issue is that the movement speed that she's going at. It's such a departure from Wonder Woman, where there's real impact to the hits and stuff like that. She punches dudes and then they ragdoll like they're in Gmod or something.
Yeah, and she blocks bullets with her arms almost ridiculously. It's beyond. It's like she became the Flash for a second. Yeah, because it's a bit too.
Well,
fast.
she can move faster than bullets, but the difference is that again, the shield really would have come in handy in this instance.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's fighting the main bad guy in this instance. She's already disposed of the bomb that was going to blow up this building in an entire city block or something.
Yeah.
And then she comes back, and the guy is shooting at the kids and the civilians.
Yeah, and she blocks all the bullets with her forearms.
Yeah, with one of the smallest parts of her body. And then the guy runs out of bullets, and I just thought, oh, so she'll just go punch him now, and he'll be like, oh, surely fucking shit.
Especially if she's that fast.
Yeah.
By the time he's reloaded, she'll she's got him.
But no, she allows him to reload, and then she just blows up half the building.
Yeah, it's I thought you were trying to stop blowing up the building. It's just you blew up half the building.
She collateral damage. She could have just punched him. Why didn't she do that to start off with all the other guys?
No, I when I was thinking afterwards when watching the film, I was I think we took a break at one point, and I was just thinking in my head, that Wonder Woman scene could have been done so much better. Yeah. It's just a little bit too much for a simple hostage situation, pretty much. So.
Yeah, but the Superman fight with the Justice League is fun. But yeah, and then so we need to move on to things like Darkseid, I think now.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say one more thing is also in comparison to Wonder Woman. I also don't like how Flash's running is just absurd.
Yeah, Ezra Miller's running, his Flash running.
Just run.
It's
normally,
like he's trying
please.
to do Tai Chi while he's running.
Yeah, he becomes jelly while he's running.
Yeah, his arms go out weird, and he becomes horizontal while he runs. Yeah. It's I
think every character has something weird that's not quite done right.
And also, just I guess to add one last sort of thing to the minor details of what they do with these heroes, I do love the moment where Batman and Wonder Woman are they're on a computer and they both touch the mouse together, and it's this really cute sort of moment where they're kind of setting up a possible romantic relationship.
I like how it was only one touch as well. Yeah. And when you mentioned, obviously, I didn't know that they had a thing in the comics.
Sometimes they do. It really depends. Yeah. But yeah.
And I'm when you mentioned it, I'm okay, it's not a bad way of doing it. But alone, it would have been okay. But so yeah, and then we got the bad guys then. So what's
Okay, so the biggest change in this film is that Darkseid is in it, and I absolutely hate that in a way. I think it's good because it's exciting in the way that it provides stakes to the story, and it gives Steppenwolf motivation. Do you remember at the end where they chop off Steppenwolf's head as he's falling back through the portal, and Darkseid is just standing there, watching through the portal. Steppenwolf goes through. Why can't he go through the portal? Also, why do they chop off Steppenwolf's head? That's not very heroic.
Yeah, it's I don't know. They really do just beat on him.
They just
beat
on him.
But,
I love that Superman does laser off his horn. It's hilariously excessive, but it's not really congruent to what Superman should do. But yes, Wonder Woman, I suppose, needed something to do in the finale, so she chops off Steppenwolf's head. And I just thought, what if you just throw him through and then Darkseid kills him? Then they appear like heroes, and Steppenwolf is dead. Darkseid is shown as a bad dude who kills traitors or failures.
And I also got confused because there's the scene where they go back and they show what had the big battle that happened.
Yeah, with like Zeus, Ares,
and I'll be honest,
and all,
I thought the big bad in that scene was Steppenwolf for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then I realised, when they like Darkseid, this is the place where you failed, and it's like, he was the guy, not Steppenwolf. Okay. Because I was really confused. I didn't realise that wasn't Steppenwolf in the previous
that's
scene.
another issue, is that all of this has been so rushed in the DCEU that, like, bringing in Darkseid, for people who don't know who Darkseid is, who's basically just... He's the mirror to Thanos, really. Darkseid, he is literally just, like, insane bad guy who wants to reshape the universe with the anti-life equation. In some instances, he just wants to end all life. And that's good enough. But he's not the coolest villain ever. I do think that like villains like Lex Luthor and the Joker are far more engaging. But the problem is that you can't really have like universe-ending stuff go on with like the Joker, because he's like robbing a bank in Gotham or something. With Lex Luthor you could, because he's smart and he could mess around with space stuff. But yeah, so Lex Luthor, horribly miscast in these films. Jesse Eisenberg is terrible as Lex Luthor. He's a little bit better in this film.
I mean, he's only in it a little bit.
I think, Jared Leto's Joker is only in it a little bit, and he's a little bit better in this film as well. Like, that being said, there is... So, I guess we should talk about the end scenes. So, first off, we have Jesse Eisenberg... I was about to say Vince Vaughn. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. He's escaped from Arkham Asylum. He's on a yacht, and Deathstroke, who's like a mercenary.
Another guy I don't recognize.
You don't know, you recognize him, but he's a mercenary with an eye patch who's like he has a thing against Batman. But he's serviceable in this. He's not got anything to do, but like he's suitably sort of like standing around in the background, looking like badass.
Yeah, he looks cool.
Yeah. But yeah, immediately after this scene where he's like Lex Luthor's trying to like hire him for a job, and it's like because again we're just imagining it's like, okay, Lex Luthor's going to do a heist of some kind. Like we've just had like the world nearly blown up by some parademons and Steppenwolf. Don't worry though, got to worry about Lex Luthor. It's like. They did not escalate this well. Like, do you remember when we had like Loki as the first villain in the Avengers films? It's like he was powerful, but he was like a guy, and he was just wanting to like take over the Earth with a few aliens. But before that, in all of these external films, very terrestrial threats, like Captain America's fighting against the Nazis. Iron Man is fighting against like his own company and people around him, and then you have Thor, where he gets sent to Earth to become a better person, And Loki's in that film, and he's an established character before the Avengers. There's tons of stuff in there that works and that escalates the threats, so that when Thanos does show up, you understand what is at stake. But in this, so you have like Darkseid and Steppenwolf, who are just CGI men who are meant to be imposing, and then you have Lex Luthor at the end in the post-credit scene. It's just like, the stakes are too high for him to be any kind of importance right now. So just after this, there's then a dream sequence with Batman in the desert again with his Mad Max shit. Also,
it's rather confusing until I remembered. It took me a while, and then I was like, oh yeah, Batman v Superman has some of these dream sequences, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is one of those. But also, if you hadn't seen Batman v Superman, I assume anyone who watching this scene would be even more confused. Because it is... They don't... Exactly.
They do have a brief montage earlier on with Darkseid. I think one of the characters, Cyborg. Cyborg. When they're resurrecting Superman, the ship shows him. So I guess the ship can tell the future or whatever, because it shows him a vision of Superman taking over the Earth.
Yeah.
And Darkseid burning everyone. Wonder Woman's killed and all this stuff. And then we get to see the aftermath of what that is in the scene afterwards. So these aren't post-credit scenes. This is literally what they've labeled as the end of the movie. There's like a few good scenes as like an epilogue where like the characters all go back to what they're doing. Like the Flash like gets into like a crime detective lab or something like that, and his dad is really proud of him.
To his dad.
That's a really nice scene. Like Cyborg rebuilds and listens to his dad's voice on a tape recorder, even though I don't know how he did that. But so this end credits, well, it's not even an end credit scene, but it feels like it should be
one of the epilogue. Yeah.
But for like,
didn't you say was this the one that was? end credit scene in the original
No,
cut?
the Deathstroke Lex Luthor one was the end scene in the original cut, because this like sequence in the desert while they're on a bridge like talking to each other, it goes on for like 20-25 minutes. Like, it seriously, when the film ended before the epilogue, we had like 30 to 40 minutes left of film. I was amazed, completely astounded, in the worst kind of way. As much as I like the sort of the foreshadowing of possible like events like the Injustice storyline, which is what this is very heavily based on, the idea of Superman turning evil because Lois Lane dies, and then basically heroes and villains sort of just take sides, and it doesn't matter who's who. But Batman's on the good side, and he's like fighting as a resistance sort of leader, and then like you have characters like Amber Heard. I don't care who she is in the thing, but yeah, her character's there, and she's like wanting to avenge like Aquaman. Cyborg is there, and he's like like in the Master Chief like fake promotion, like Wanderer's cloak.
Yeah.
The Flash is there, but he says nothing. He's in like a weird costume that he was in for Batman vs Superman to time travel. But Batman's leading the squad, and Deathstroke is there. This is the scene after Deathstroke is like, I'm going to kill Batman, and I know who he is.
And then and
they're like best buds now,
with him,
which is interesting. But I would say that like it does kind of undercut what was said there. We understand that these characters are going to show up later if there's any of these future movies do happen. Yeah, so you have those characters there, and then you have the big reveal, which is that the Joker is working with them, and he's back. And he did not need to be on screen as much as he was, but some of the things some of the acting he's doing is pretty good. But they are very excessively going with the storyline of like, oh yeah, Joker killed Robin, and like Batman. And then Batman says he's going to kill the Joker, and I thought, oh okay, so he's going to kill the Joker. But the Joker's acting like he's joking. The problem is that this scene doesn't work and these post-apocalypse scenes don't work anyway. Because he's killing people in these post-apocalypse scenes. Batman, he's shooting people with guns. The problem is he does that in the past anyway. But eventually they all have this giant sort of tense scene. It's very sort of Suicide Squad. And then Superman turns up, and they're all about to fight him, and Superman's about to kill them. And then Batman wakes up again, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's another dream sequence.
Another dream sequence that is just...
Stop.
It's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, they always are.
Just because it's the only main dream scene in this film as well.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like Batman v Superman has them spread out throughout, doesn't it?
It does, but I think that
it's still not
well handled. Confusing.
But this one, it's even just more out of place.
Yeah,
really, isn't it?
But it's all a fucking mess. Then we have the scene where Ben Affleck is a terrible actor, and he's trying to like
Martian Man.
He's talking to Martian Manhunter. Then Martian Manhunter flies off into the sky, and the film ends. And I just thought, why the fuck didn't they just end with the montage of everyone going back to their lives and sort of being happy? Like in this film, it's completely undercut because they spend as I said, like this is the section where they could have just trimmed it down, and they would have had a far more releasable film. Like it would have been like 3 hours long or something.
But again, as I said, I can enjoy a long film as long as it's a good film.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a lot of stuff in here that's not necessary.
So yeah, Miles Dyson from T2.
Yeah, I was gonna go back. Yeah, because I did forget as well about obviously Cyborg's dad. Do you think he is it the actor's name or is the
so I don't know the actor's name, unfortunately. I just recognise him from Terminator 2.
Terminator 2, the same scientist guy. I think he gets typecast a bit.
You said
playing the exact same character
with the same demise.
And as we were watching it, it's like, oh, he's going to sacrifice himself again, isn't he?
He's going to flip a switch with his like thumb, and it's going to blow something up, and he's going to die.
Except this time, he didn't need to be in the box.
No, he didn't.
He goes in the room to cook himself with the box.
Yeah.
And you don't even figure out what he's doing until like 5 minutes later.
Also, if this laser is like super powerful, why are they like using glass to stop it?
Yeah, because then Steppenwolf just breaks in afterwards, doesn't he?
If you could switch it on from inside there, and it's glass that can repel lasers, he could probably switch it on from the outside.
He's holding... It's a remote device, I'm pretty sure, in his hand.
Yeah.
It's just like, why couldn't you have just stood outside and, maybe not died?
Yeah. And also, it's like, we don't know what he's doing as a plan. Like, we just assume that he's like, okay, I'm going to blow up the cube, and it doesn't work, and we automatically assume like
he just kills himself.
We just assume like, oh, so he killed himself for no reason, because we thought initially it was like, okay, he's going to try and destroy the cube with the laser, and we thought, okay, this film's stupid enough for him to try and do that stuff. But I will say it was. It didn't communicate it to us early enough, but it was actually much smarter than that.
Yeah, no, they did reference earlier the whole superheating thing.
Yeah, this is another question. So, how long does it take for the mother boxes when they're in Unity to blow up the Earth and turn it into Apocalypse, which is the planet that they come from? How, like, because as soon as he gets the boxes, I just feel like. You know, he joined the other two boxes instantaneously earlier, and like his fortress got finished. How and why and what? And it's like, okay, the hero's like setting, like gearing up and stuff like that. I'm like, bitches, you need to get on your way now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to this film, not as a film and the content of it, I do think that it sets a dangerous, example to the industry, because this was a film that was made retrospectively and had essentially a second go of it, because the producers fucked it up. And obviously, I think you should respect Zack Snyder for what he's done here in a way, because he did this as a passion project to come back to it. As far as I am aware, he took no monetary gain from it. He just wanted complete creative control, which in a way is bad for the things like the ending and that, but I think anyone who likes the DC movies is going to like this film. I think they're going to love it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I don't think that it's the best thing ever. I do think that it's good, but in a very sort of like DC watchable way.
Yeah, but I think we both agreed it's much better than we thought it would be.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah. I thought this was going to be really bad.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people might wonder why I'm scared of this film becoming a statement to the industry, and I should probably quantify what I mean by that. When I first heard of like, oh, release the Snyder Cut, it did not ring true as like, okay, this is the director's cut, because it is the director's cut in a way, but a director's cut is on its own very controversial. I think that some director's cuts are much better than the original film. Blade Runner is a perfect example, where the final cut, I think, is the most superior cut of that film. But as well, like, also it pissed off a lot of people who, just like the original stuff. George Lucas, classic example of somebody who messed with his creation after the fact and made it worse. When it comes to director's cuts, I think it's a different kind of can of worms, because this was not a director's cut in a conventional way. Because there was, they redid the CGI, obviously. So they paid CG artists to go and do that. They did a few reshoots at the end. But for the most part, this was a film that was already shot and filmed. It probably cost them a lot to do the reshoots for the Joss Whedon thing, because they had to do the Henry Cavill mustache thing. So they still spent money on this. However, I do think that overall, they have probably made more money with two films being made out of one than they had any right to as Warner Brothers as a studio. I think that they probably made bank on that. I don't think the original time they did, but bear in mind, if you push out like an unfinished product, then you give someone the finished product afterwards. You're going to make more money if you put out the original one, and because regardless of if it didn't do as well as whatever was domestically doing well that week, it still made a lot of money. Not as much as it probably wanted to. Probably broke short of its budget initially, but this on streaming services, people want to see this Snyder Cut. What it feels like to me is it feels like it's the film equivalent of early access in video games.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like an early access film.
But in film, I'm going to be honest, as a principle, I do think that once something is out there, it is out there. Obviously, you can do re-releases, you can do recuts, but I do think that for a major studio to do this, especially for something that was... Because this is a cinematic universe thing, and DC as well. It's a mess what they're doing with the DC stuff, because I do not fucking know what is connected to what. Because Joker was a film that was on its own. Birds of Prey, The Suicide Squad, these are films that seem like they're involved with this stuff, but they're tonally completely different. Now The Batman with Robert Pattinson's coming out. Like, what does that factor into? Is that like I think I spoke to our friend Tyler about this because he knows a bit more about the way that the films are factoring into each other. Because shout out to Tyler, by the way. He's a much bigger fan of like superhero movies than I am. But when it comes to the Batman, I thought, okay, maybe this is going to be set in the Joker universe because the Joker was set in the 70s or like the 80s.
Yeah.
And this film is like, you know, maybe you know, this Batman or whatever, this Bruce Wayne is the kid from Joker or whatever, that Bruce Wayne. I'm pretty sure that it turns out that's not the case and that this is just another spin-off film that has nothing to do with anything. And I do think that that's a bad thing in many respects because it's going to confuse your general audience. It's confused me, and I typically don't get confused by this stuff, but DC has managed to sort of craft their universe in a way where it's just the biggest pile of inconsistent dog shit. I think that Shazam has been the only good film in this series of films, I think, up until the Snyder Cut. And I do think the Snyder Cut, it does have a lot of major problems, I still feel, that holds it back from being really good. I do think that it's good, watchable, moderate, but I do think that it needs to be put in perspective in that this is in comparison to DC as a whole, not just like the industry. But yeah, I'm very worried about what this means to the industry of like, okay, the studio now knows that they can release films retrospectively. It's like they can push out messes, they don't have to, they can reshoot things after the fact, after they've released the film and release a different cut.
Let's make audience pay to watch 3 different cuts of the film.
Yeah.
You know?
If it has planted the idea in studios' heads that this is a possibility, and that it might be a good idea, we could end up seeing
other big films that do this.
Yeah, sometime we might see some sort of we might see a spike in it. That's my only concern. I do think, again, it's nice that Zack Snyder got to finish his film. I do think that it's nice that people got to see the film they wanted to see, but that's on a very surface level, not considering the context of when this comes out. But when it comes to cinema releases, I don't know how this will translate, but
yeah.
Nothing can be said for certain, but I do think don't hold your breath when it comes to these studios. Don't hold your breath when it comes to what you think might be good intentions, because although Zack Snyder might have come in with good intentions, the studio did not. They came in because they thought they could make a buck off of it. That's it, basically. I don't know who the fuck is managing their stuff, but you know what I feel like it is. I feel like you know how Chancellor Palpatine is also, obviously he's Darth Sidious, and he just puts on a hood and he's Darth Sidious, and he's like plotting against the Republic and also plotting against the Separatists.
Yeah.
I feel like Kathleen Kennedy is in a hood somewhere in DC headquarters, and she's like plotting against like Disney, and she's also plotting against like Warner Brothers, and she's just playing both sides. She's mindlessly fucking up the DC movies as well. I like to think that she's the ghost sort of writer, like Kevin Feige style. What is the future of this franchise now that they've released this film? I honestly don't know.
I mean, as you said, it seems like Ben Affleck doesn't really care.
Ben Affleck, he's been getting enough hate for these bad films, and I think he's just tired. He's tired of it just not going well. Ben Affleck isn't the best actor. I do think that he's good in a few things, but I do think people they rate him too highly, I think. But in this, I think as well, he's just like, I think something's going on behind the scenes, and I think that he needs help. There's definitely something up with him. I don't know what, but there's something up with him. Like, he's not trying unless he's like he has something wrong with him. I think he's just phoning it in, or he has issues. But all right. I guess
overall,
that's
all right.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the Snyder Cut. I think if you're a fan of Zack Snyder's work, and I think if you're a fan of DC as a whole, I think just the characters, comic books, the films that have previously come by, I think you'll enjoy this. I think if you're a fan of the comic books and the other adaptations of Batman, you might not enjoy this film as much. It's perfectly watchable. If it's on television, I'd watch it again in the background. I don't think I would purchase this film to own. And the times that it made me laugh because of its baffling sort of terrible elements, it was brilliant. It was the moment where Wonder Woman's like hitting the guys and they turn into ragdolls is just so fucking hilarious. I guess this closes out our discussion of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening to us film chat about films.
Yeah. Have a nice day. And I guess we'll see you next time on the next episode of 2 More Takes.
Until next time.
Bye!